तो सभी स्टूडेंट लगभग 78-80 आ चुके हैं। अपन
चलिए स्टार्ट करें, है ना? बिल्कुल।
So thank you very much to all participants to join this UGPG IAPT UGPG lecture series. So today we have Dr. Arpana Agrawal madam, and she will explain helium neon laser and CO2 laser. Yesterday she also went to the Ruby laser and as well as Ruby laser and introductory part of that. And right now I am going to invite Dr. V.D. Srivastava sir, and he is a patron of this UGPG lecture series. And as a convener and as a whole team, we are inviting to V.D. sir. Please sir.
हाँ, थैंक यू मिस्टर सेन। ये आईएपीटी के बैनर के अंतर्गत हमारा जो सीरीज चल रही है ऑनलाइन लेक्चर सीरीज, ये बहुत यूजफुल होती जा रही है, क्योंकि पिछले 2-3 दिनों में मेरे पास जिन कट गया, क्या हो गया?
नहीं सही है।
हेलो,
नो प्रॉब्लम
सर, आ रही है
आवाज आ रही है ना? तो चलिए, कुछ प्रॉब्लम लग रही थी मुझे। तो आईएपीटी की ये जो सीरीज आप लोगों ने तैयार की है और जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स का इसमें पार्ट नजर आ रहा है, क्योंकि हम लोग तो बहुत मेहनत हमेशा करने को तैयार रहते हैं, लेकिन पार्टिसिपेंट सुनने के लिए तो तैयार हो। लेकिन इस प्लेटफॉर्म से आज हम ये दावे के साथ कह सकते हैं कि अच्छा माल यदि मिलेगा तो सुनने के लिए बच्चे तैयार हैं। पूरे देश भर के बच्चे इस प्लेटफॉर्म से जुड़े हैं। पूरे देश भर से लोगों के जो है वो मेरे पास कॉल भी आ रहे हैं, बातचीत भी हो रही है। आप लोगों के पास भी शायद ऐसा ही कुछ हो रहा होगा, जिन जिन के नंबर उस पर डले हुए हैं सभी के पास कुछ ना कुछ कॉल या मैसेज आ रहे होंगे। तो पूरी आईएपीटी की हमारी टीम को मैं पहले बधाई देता हूँ, शुभकामना देता हूँ। और हमारे पास में आज फिर एक बहुत अच्छी स्पीकर हैं डॉक्टर अर्पणा अग्रवाल, जो कि लेजर के संदर्भ में कल अपना जो उन्होंने लेक्चर दिया था उसको कंटिन्यू करेंगी। आगे लेजर के बारे में आपको जो है वो बताने के लिए मैं आमंत्रित करता हूँ डॉक्टर अर्पणा अग्रवाल। आई इनवाइट डॉक्टर अर्पणा अग्रवाल, प्लीज वेलकम।
Okay, one important thing is that कल जो है वो लेजर का टेस्ट होगा। ठीक है, सभी लोग ध्यान रखिएगा। कल 3 बजे जो है वो लेजर का टेस्ट होगा। इसमें कौन कौन सी यूनिट्स आएगी वो बता दी जाएगी अभी। जैसे कि अर्पणा मैम के जो आज वाला लेक्चर और कल वाला था वो दोनों, और जितेंद्र सर के दोनों लेक्चर, टोटल मिला के 4 लेक्चर से जो है वो टेस्ट होगा। 4 लेक्चर का सिलेबस में बता दीजिए एक बार।
हाँ, बेसिक्स ऑफ लेजर आएगा, जिसमें आपको एलिमेंट्स ऑफ लेजर एंड द बेसिक प्रोसेसेस ऑफ लेजर इंक्लूडिंग एब्जॉर्प्शन, स्पॉन्टेनियस एंड स्टिमुलेटेड इमिशन देखना है। टाइप्स ऑफ लेजर में हम सॉलिड स्टेट लेजर और गैस लेजर के बारे में आपसे क्वेश्चंस करेंगे, जिसमें बेसिकली फोकस होगा रूबी लेजर, एंडियाग लेजर, हीलियम नियॉन लेजर, CO2 लेजर पर।
ओके, सभी अपना लिख दीजिएगा। कपिल, एक बार सिलेबस भी आप लिख दीजिएगा पूरा, और साथ में कल का 3 बजे का आप लिख दीजिएगा। वैसे हम वेबसाइट पे इसे डाल देंगे। ठीक है मैम, आप अपना लेक्चर जो है वो स्टार्ट करेंगे। ठीक, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू। So good evening to all of you. In the yesterday's lecture, we have discussed about the solid state laser, where we basically focused on the Ruby laser, which is a 3-level laser system, and Andiag laser, which is a 4-level laser system. So today we are moving to another type of laser system, that is a gas laser system, where the active medium is in the form of gas. And under this gas laser systems, we will discuss about the helium neon laser as well as the carbon dioxide laser. I hope that with this lecture, the students will be able to understand the basic difference between the atomic gas laser as well as the molecular gas laser, how the working of these two type of lasers, that is atomic and molecular, are different, and what are the basic applications of these laser systems. This is the content of today's class. I will discuss the construction and working of helium neon laser as well as the carbon dioxide laser, along with some of their limitations, benefits, and applications. And finally, at the end, I will summarize the basic and important aspects of both this type of lasers. So if we start with the helium neon laser, first question is why we need a helium neon laser. Actually, in 1960, we already have our first laser, that is the Ruby laser. But the requirement of the pumping power is quite high in that laser as compared to the output that we are getting. So if we talk about the efficiency, which is nothing but the ratio of the output power and the input power, we find that the efficiency of a ruby laser is quite low. So in the search of improvement for the efficiency, the scientists move for a 4-level laser system where they have developed the first gas laser, that is a helium neon gas laser, in 1964, after 1 year from the discovery of the very first laser. And it was developed by Ali Javan and his group. And it is the first continuous wave noble gas laser. The main advantage of this gas laser over the solid state laser is it is prone to damage by overheating, so they can be run continuously. If I say they can be run continuously, it means if we have a solid state laser where we have ruby or ND arc, they are giving us the output in the form of pulsed mode. But in the helium neon laser, we can get a continuous wave output, or in the another gas laser that I will discuss later, that is a CO2 laser, we can get a continuous wave output. Now the thing is, why we called a helium neon gas laser as a noble gas laser. The thing is, the atomic species helium and neon both are inert gases and they are not reacting with each other. And if they do not react, it means they hold their the electron clouds very tightly, and because of this, these two species of atom do not form any stable molecule. And if they do not form any stable molecule, just a minute. And if they do not form any stable molecules, it means the output that is produced from a helium neon laser is an atomic transition, is because of atomic transitions. This is the basic construction of a helium neon laser, where this is a discharge tube which is around 5 centimeter in length and 2.5 centimeter in diameter, and it is filled with helium gas as well as the neon gas, which are filled at a very low pressure. And this discharge tube is connected with a power supply, a very high voltage DC power supply. So the pumping scheme that we used in the gas laser system is the electric discharge, and the resonator is the 2 plane mirrors which are silvered differently. Here we do not use any metallic layer coating. Actually, if we say that we silvered it differently, it means we used to do metallic coating. But in this case, we generally use multi-layer dielectric coating. Because this dielectric material means they have a very high band gap, like hafnium oxide or aluminum oxide sapphire. They have a very high band gap, and the dielectric constant is also very high. And because of this high band gap, they are mainly transparent materials, transparent to most of the radiations. So they can withstand with a very high intensity of laser. And if we have metallic layers, then they can absorb. They have a large absorption in near IR and UV region. So the mirrors, the optical resonator is made up of 2 mirrors which are coated, 2 plane mirrors which are coated with multi-layer dielectric materials. The another function of this optical resonator is the wavelength selection. Wavelength selection means only those modes, only those components will survive within the resonator that follows the standing wave condition for a photon. And this L equals to n lambda by 2 is the standing wave condition, where n represents the mode of the laser. So the mode of the laser is defined as how many lambda by 2 can fit within the length of the laser L. So only wavelengths that are satisfying this condition will resonate and get amplified. So this is all about the optical resonator. And this is the actual picture of a helium neon laser. This is the quartz tube, and this is the another tube which is filled with helium and neon gas. And this red color is the output of the helium neon gas. And these 2 wires are used to supply to give supply to the electrodes, that is cathode and anode. So after this construction, and before going to the energy level diagram, this is the electronic configuration of neon and helium atom. In helium, we have the atomic number of 2, and its electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s0, and 2p0. And if we excite this helium, it means after excitation, one of these 2 electron will jump to 2s shell. So if it jumps to 2s shell, then there are 2 possibilities. Number 1 is either it will flip its spin, and number 2, if it will preserve its spin. So if it flip its spin, then it means that if in the 1s state it has plus half spin or up spin, and in the another state if it has again a plus half spin, up spin means spin conservation, then in that case the total multiplicity, which is defined by 2s plus 1, will be 3. So we get a triplet state. And in another case, if there is any spin flip, then the total multiplicity will be 1. And on the basis of this multiplicity, we can define a singlet or a triplet state. In case of this neon atom, neon has an electronic configuration, atomic number of 10, and its electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. So in the excited state, one of this 2p electron from these 6 electrons will jump to either 3s state, to 3p state, 4s state, 4p state, or 5s state. So all these are the excited states of neon atom, and these are the excited states of the helium atom. Now let's come to the energy level diagram. So this is the ground state of a helium atom, which is 1s2, 2s0, and 2p0. And after the electric discharge, because of the interaction with the electron, this helium atoms in the ground state gain the energy from the via electron impact and get excited. Because of this excitation, the atoms will promoted to the electrons will promoted to the singlet and triplet states residing at 20.61 electron volt and 19.82 electron volt. And coincidentally, what happens that the metastable state of neon is having almost the same energy with the excited state of helium. That means the 5s and 4s metastable states of neon have the energy equivalent to 19.82, that is 19.78 electron volt, and 20.66, which is in close proximity with 20.61. So when the helium atom in the excited state interacts with the neon atom in the ground state, it causes the neon atoms to get excited, and these neon atoms then promoted to the metastable states 4s state and 5s state. And once they get promoted to this metastable state, we can have some stimulated emissions. If the population inversion is achieved, then we will get the laser transitions. So because of this continuous electric discharge, the population in the 5s and 4s state goes on increasing, and a state will arrive, which is the population inversion. So once the population inversion is achieved, the transition from 5s to 3p, 5s to 4p, and 4s to 3p will give us the laser transition. Now the question is, why there is no transition from 5s to 4s state? Actually, from the electron dipole transition rules, we have delta L, that is orbital angular momentum, and the change in the orbital angular momentum can never be 0. It should be plus minus 1. So from the 5s state, the electron can only go to p state. So from here, it will jump down to 3p state, and if the transition from the 5s state to 3p state occurs, then we get a photon of wavelength 632.8 nanometer. Along with this photon, we also get some another photons, that is 543 nanometers. And from 5s to 4p transition, we get a 3391 nanometer, and from 5s to 3p, we get 1152 nanometer photon. But all these photons are not the main components of the helium neon laser. Only the 632.8 nanometer is the main component of this helium neon laser. So what is the way to suppress these other photons? The answer is, if we want to suppress this another photons, we have to design the mirrors of the optical resonator in such a way so that they can show a very low reflectivity. And if they show very low reflectivity, it means, like in a laser system, what we need is to have some multiple reflections. If we have some multiple reflections, then the light will be amplified. And if we restrict these multiple reflections, then we did not get any amplified light. So if we use the mirror having a very low reflectivity, then it will not allow these photons having a wavelength of 3.39 micron or 543 nanometers or other wavelengths, and thus the photon of this wavelengths will be eliminated. However, the mirror is so designed that it shows full reflectivity for a photon having a wavelength of 632.8 nanometers. So this photon will move back and forth in the optical resonator system and get resonated and amplified, and we get a laser output through a partially reflected mirror. So this is how we can suppress the other wavelengths that are arising along with the 632.8 nanometers, which is the main component of light, helium neon laser light. Now this is the spectrum of a helium neon laser. This figure shows the intensity versus wavelength graph, where this dashed line is the spectral line for a helium neon laser having a wavelength of 632.8 nanometers here, and this solid line is the spectral line for the old generation red LED, and this dotted line is the new generation red LED. So we can clearly see from here that the line broadening here, that is the bandwidth, is quite large here. The full width half maxima, if we talk about the full width half maxima, is quite large in case of all old generation LED. However, in case of new generation LED, we can see it is around 10 to 12 nanometers, but it is still a very large value. And in case of this helium neon laser, we can see that we are getting a single straight line. I mean, it is showing a delta kind of function, rather not a delta kind of function. It's not showing an infinite intensity, but it is showing a sharp feature at a particular wavelength. It means it has a very high spectral purity, which is 10,000 times larger than that of the purity of the light that is emitted from new generation or old generation LEDs. But this is the ideal condition. In ideally, we are getting some sharp levels, but in actual case, we cannot get any sharp line because of the intrinsic width of the spectral line. And this intrinsic width is mainly because of two reasons. Number one is the natural line width, and number two is the Doppler broadening. So what is the natural line width? In natural line width, we all are aware of the uncertainty principle, which says that delta E, I mean the spread in energy and spread in time, is always greater than h cut by 2. So if there is no line width, then delta E should be 0. And if delta E is 0, it means that delta T will be infinite. So what does this mean? Infinite means that if an electron is in any excited state, it will remain there for whole of its life, which cannot be practically possible. Every element, every electron has its own lifespan. So it has to come down. It means there cannot be any sharp energy levels, and there have some intrinsic weight corresponding to each spectral line. This is number one. And but this effect, this natural line width effect, is a very small effect and is present in almost every kind of material. The another plotting mechanism that is responsible for the intrinsic width of this 632.8 nanometer helium neon laser spectral line is Doppler broadening, where the random thermal motions of atom within the helium neon plasma results in Doppler shift. And this is the main broadening mechanism which causes the spectral line width of a helium neon laser, and its spectral line width is around 0.002 nanometer. However, we can also avoid this broadening by using a mixture of single isotopes helium-3 and neon-20 as a gas mixture in the gas envelope. So these are some of the advantages of helium and helium neon gas. Helium gas laser. Helium neon gas laser is a very low cost laser, and it can be operated without damage at higher temperatures. It emits laser light in the visible region, that is 632.8 nanometer. Approximately energy is 1.95 electron volts, and it is a very high it has a very high stability. But if we talk about the disadvantages, then again the efficiency and gain of this laser is not that much high as we are expecting, and because of the low power output, this laser cannot be used for cutting purposes or material depositions, as we saw in our last class, that NdR laser, which has a very high output power, can be used for cutting purposes as well as material deposition using pulse laser deposition techniques. So this laser has its own limitations, but apart from these limitations, there are several applications which can be done, several applications that can be achieved via this laser. This laser has a wide range of application in experimental field, where in Raman spectroscopy, this laser is used as a source to examine the vibrational modes, vibrational levels of the material, where we can examine the acoustic and optical modes. It can also be used in the interferometry experiments. It can also be used for holography, where the hologram can be constructed or reconstructed with the help of helium neon laser as a source. And we all know that in the supermarkets, we use helium neon lasers to read barcodes. It is also used in nonlinear optics, where the nonlinear absorption and the nonlinear refraction coefficients, which are very important coefficients to design any optoelectronic device. So we can obtain this this absorption coefficients and refraction coefficients with the help of helium neon laser. However, since this helium neon laser is a continuous wave laser and having an energy of 1.95 electron volts, so if we want to have any electronic excitations, electronic effects, where we need to excite the electrons from the valence band to the conduction band, we have an energy equivalent to the energy band gap. like in zinc oxide, if we have zinc oxide material, then its energy band gap is quite high. It's around 3 eV, and the energy of this helium neon laser source is 1.95, which is quite lesser than the zinc oxide's band gap. So we cannot achieve an electronic transition via this laser if we want to examine the nonlinear optical properties of a material. So what we get is the thermal effects because of the continuous nature of the output. The another application is if we have a low power helium neon laser, then it can be used for a laser pointer applications. So this is all about the helium neon laser. Next is the carbon dioxide laser. So carbon dioxide itself shows that it is a molecular laser where CO2 is a molecule having 1 carbon and 2 oxygen atoms at both the sides. So it forms a stable molecule. So it is a molecular gas laser, and it is a more efficient laser system as compared to the helium neon, which is an atomic laser system. And this is the construction of the carbon dioxide laser, where this is the discharge tube, and it is filled with a gas envelope consisting of carbon dioxide, nitrogen gas, and helium gas. These gases are filled at suitable partial pressures with an equal proportion of carbon dioxide and nitrogen gas, and the remaining is the helium gas. And the active center, if we talk about the active medium, then this is of course the gas mixture. But if we talk about the active centers within this active medium, then these are the vibrational states. Actually, this CO2 molecule is a diatomic molecule, and if we talk about diatomic molecule, then we must know about the vibration and rotational states of a diatomic molecule. So the active center in this carbon dioxide gas laser are the vibration states of CO2 molecules. The pumping method here that is used is again the electric discharge, where high voltage DC power supply is used, and the ends of this discharge tube are fitted with NaCl Bristol's window, so that the output that we are getting from this laser system will be polarized. And the optical resonator here in this case is made up of 2 concave mirrors, unlike of the helium neon laser where we use plane mirrors. Here we use concave mirrors, with one with fully reflecting mirror, another one is partially reflecting mirror to get the laser output. So the thing is, what are the main role of these 3 gases? CO2 gas, N2 gas, and helium gas. CO2 is very clear that we can achieve population inversion in the vibrational states of the CO2 molecule, and the role of this N2 nitrogen gas is to help or to assist in the CO2 molecule in achieving the population inversion. How it can achieve this? How it can assist in achieving population inversion is the excited state of this nitrogen is approximately equal to the metastable state or the vibration state of the CO2 molecule. So it helps in achieving population inversion. Now, what is the role of helium gas? Actually, helium gas has a very high thermal conductivity. So whatever the heating effects generated within the during this electric discharge process, it is taken away by the helium gas. This helium gas has a very low molecular mass of approximately 4 AMU. Nitrogen gas has a molecular mass of 14, and CO2 gas has a molecular mass of around 44. So CO2 gas is a much heavier among all these 3. So before going to the energy working of this CO2 laser with the help of energy level diagram, first understand what are the energy levels. Basically, this is the energy versus internuclear separation curve, where when the atoms are quite apart from each other, then they start attracting each other, and because of this attraction, there is a negative energy, that is attraction energy, and once they reach a equilibrium separation, so this point is the equilibrium separation, they again start repelling each other, so the curve goes in the positive direction. So this point is the equilibrium separation, and this dark blue curves, lower dark blue curve shows the ground state, and the upper dark blue curve shows the excited electronic states. These electronic states are separated with a large band gap, or large energy separation is there, which is around 5 to 10 electron volt, and it falls in the UV visible region. So if we want to examine this electronic states, then we have to use a system like UV visible spectroscopy to examine this electronic states. And the dark this light blue lines within this electronic bands shows the vibration levels. These vibration levels lies in IR region and have an energy of 0.1 electron volt, so lower in energy with those of UV visible region. And within this vibration energy levels, these purple lines, these are the rotational levels which falls in the microwave region. So if we want to examine the vibration energy level, we use the Raman spectroscopy. And to examine this rotational energy levels, we use NMR spectroscopy, whose energy falls in the region of MeVs, 5 MeVs. So overall, the total energy of a system is comprising of electronic energy, rotation energy, as well as the vibration energy, where rotation energy is higher than that of the vibration energy, which is again higher, which is as compared to the rotational energy. So in this laser system, in this CO2 laser system, we are basically focusing on the vibration energy levels, and under this vibration energy levels, we have some rotational levels. Now, this is the energy level. No, before going to energy level, these are some vibration modes of the CO2 laser. Actually, there are 3 vibration modes: the asymmetric, symmetric, and bending. In the symmetric stretching mode, the carbon atom is at the stationary position, and both the oxygen atoms are vibrating simultaneously along the axis of the molecule, and they will either depart or approach the fixed carbon atom. And it has a lower energy than the asymmetric stretching mode. In the case of asymmetric stretching mode, this carbon atom along with the oxygen atom can vibrate asymmetrically. The oxygen atom move in one direction while the carbon atom in the another direction. And this mode has a very high energy, and its metastable state is almost equal to the excited state of nitrogen gas. And the third mode is the bending mode, where the oxygen atom and the carbon atoms vibrate perpendicular to the molecular axis. And this bending mode has a lower energy as compared to the asymmetric and symmetric stretching modes. Now this is the energy level diagram of the carbon dioxide laser, where this left part shows the levels of ground state and the excited state of nitrogen, and this right part shows the asymmetric stretching mode, symmetric stretching mode, and bending mode of carbon dioxide laser, carbon dioxide molecule. So what happens is, if we once the electric discharge is given to the gas envelope, then the nitrogen gas, because of being lighter than the CO2 molecule, it interacts with the electron, and because of this interaction, because of this electron impact, this nitrogen molecule get excited. So this is the ground state. When it gains energy via electron impact, the atoms get excited and promoted to the excited state of nitrogen. So this N2 star is showing the excited state, and this release the electron, the same electron but with lower energy. Now there are 2 possibilities, 2 ways in which the nitrogen in the excited state interacts with the carbon dioxide to excite it. Number 1 is either the excited nitrogen interact with the ground CO2 atom in the ground state, which is depicted by this equation. This is number 1. And number 2, this will again comes down to the ground state and release a photon, because these 2 levels has the same energy. So if a photon is dropping from here, atom is dropping from here to ground state, it will emit a photon which is equivalent to this energy difference. So by absorbing this released energy, the ground state CO2 will absorb this energy and will excite the electrons to the asymmetric stretching band, which is the vibration levels. And these small lines within this vibration levels are the rotational lines. So from this E5 level, the asymmetric stretching band, there achieve a state of population inversion via continuous electric discharge. And once the population inversion is achieved, the stimulated process initiated. And because of this stimulated process, the photons from this E5 level drops down to the rotational levels of the symmetric band as well as the rotational level of the bending band. And from the transition from the asymmetric stretch E5 to symmetric stretch E4 will give rise to a photon having a wavelength of 10.6 micron. And from the transition from E5 to E3 transition, we get a photon of 9.6 micron. But the intensity of 10.6 micron photon is quite higher as compared to 9.6 micron. So the main component of this carbon dioxide laser is 10.6 micron. These are some of the advantages and disadvantages of CO2 laser. CO2 laser has a very high efficiency and this is also a full level laser system like Nd:YAG laser system, but the basic difference is Nd:YAG is a solid state and this is a gas laser system. It gives the output in continuous mode, and the output power is quite high, and the output power can even be increased as per our requirement by extending the length of the gas tube. And the basic disadvantages are the operating temperature here plays a very important role in determining the output power, and the contamination of oxygen by carbon monoxide will also have some effects on lasing action. Apart from this, it is a class 4 laser, and the output is a continuous wave, but in the region of IR region, which is invisible. So it is it is very harmful if we do not handle it with care. Apart from this disadvantages, this flaws, it has widely used for material processing. It has a wide range of application in industrial sector, like in welding, drilling, cutting. So this is some of the examples where CO2 laser is used for marking and cutting. It is highly used for remote sensing applications, for medical field, for the treatment of liver or lung diseases, and dermatology, or in the field of dermatology, for facial resurfacing or the facial uplifting. So it has a wide range of applications. So in summary, we have two lasers, that is a helium neon laser or a CO2 laser, whereas helium neon is an atomic laser and a CO2 laser is a molecular gas laser. Both these laser systems are full level laser system, but the efficiency of a helium neon laser system is quite low as compared to the carbon dioxide laser. The active medium in case of helium neon is a gas envelope of helium and neon gases which do not interact with each other. And in case of CO2 laser, we have a gas envelope of equal proportion of carbon dioxide gas, nitrogen gas, and the remaining amount is the helium gas. The active center in the helium neon gas is the neon atoms, and helium is helping in achieving population inversion in neon. While in case of CO2 laser, the vibration levels of the CO2 gas laser of the CO2 molecule acts as the active centers, and the neon nitrogen molecule in the CO2 laser is helping in achieving population inversion, while helium gas is helping in preventing the heat that is generated within the system. Same pumping method has been used in both the systems, that is the electric discharge, and the pumping source is a high voltage DC power supply. In case of helium neon laser, the plane mirrors are used as and which are polished differently, and in CO2 laser we use concave mirrors which are polished differently. The output power of a helium neon gas is much lower as compared to the carbon dioxide laser, and the output of both these lasers are continuous, and the wavelength emitted in case of helium neon is in the visible region, that is a red color, 632.8 nanometers. And in case of CO2 laser, it is 10.6 micron, which lies in the far IR region. So the basic difference if we talk about the carbon dioxide and Nd:YAG laser is both these lasers are giving us invisible output. But in case of CO2 laser, we have 10.6 micron and in case of Nd:YAG, we get 1.06 micron output wavelength. But Nd:YAG laser is used for deposition purposes in pulse laser deposition, because in pulse laser deposition we use the third harmonic of Nd:YAG laser because it gives approximately 265 nanometer wavelength, which is in because most of the material has their absorption within this wavelength region. But in case of CO2 laser, it cannot be used for material deposition purposes. So overall, we have in both the classes we have discussed about the laser systems, basically the solid state and gas laser systems, the Ruby laser and Nd:YAG laser system, which gives pulsed output, and one is the 3-level laser system and another one is a 4-level laser system. And in today's class we have discussed about the gas lasers, helium neon and CO2 gas laser, which are atomic and molecular gas lasers respectively. So thank you all, and questions are welcome.
मैम चैट रूम देख सकते हैं आप अगर, या फिर मेरी स्क्रीन देख लीजिए, मैं स्क्रीन शेयर कर देता हूँ।
एक मिनट मैं चैट रूम में देख लेती हूँ।
ठीक है।
Why concave mirrors are used in CO2? Ask again your doubt. अच्छा, ये तो आपने बोला. Another example of atomic and molecular gas lasers. Okay. What are the current research work going on on using lasers? Actually lasers, mainly जो lasers में अभी currently work चल रहा है वो चल रहा है free electron lasers में, जहाँ पे हमें synchrotron beamline facilities पर जो हम bending magnets को use करते हैं वहाँ पे हमें free electron lasers की बहुत जरूरत पड़ती है. तो जो main अभी इसका work चल रहा है वो हमारा synchrotrons पे चल रहा है, हाँ accelerators पे चल रहा है. The another one is why concave mirror? Okay, I have to look for this. What is the relation between energy released of N2 and 3 different part in excited state or in CO2 laser? Actually the excited state of this nitrogen molecule has approximately the same energy with the vibrational levels of the CO2 laser. So if we have an energy that is equivalent to the excited, equivalent to the difference of the excited and the ground state in case of nitrogen, that energy will be sufficient to excite the CO2 molecule from the ground state to the vibrational metastable states. Helium gas, it absorbs heat during laser. Yes, helium gas has a very high thermal conductivity. It absorbs heat during laser action. Okay, and can you please repeat what is the role of helium gas here? Helium gas in CO2 laser. Okay, actually this helium gas has a very high thermal conductivity and its thermal coefficient is quite high. So whatever heat is generated during the electric discharge process, this helium gas is taking away all those heats and prevent the system from heating. It also serves to relax the CO2 molecule from the lower to the lowest level. Please repeat the excited and ground state of helium neon laser. Okay. कपिल चैट हिस्ट्री चली जाती है क्या जब मैं स्क्रीन शेयर करती हूँ?
नहीं मैम नहीं जाती.
अच्छा, ओके, आती नहीं है, ठीक है. क्वेश्चन क्या था यार, फिर से कपिल क्वेश्चन रिपीट करना.
मैम कौन सा क्वेश्चन था? Helium gas has high thermal conductivity. It absorbs heat during the laser action.
That I already answered. एक मिनट मैं देख रही हूँ. Okay, energy levels, excited and ground state energy levels of helium and neon. Actually, in the helium atom, we have 2 electrons, and the ground state is comprising of 1s2, 2s2, and 2p0. And the excited state is singlet and triplet states, where one of the 2s electron will shift, one of the 1s electron will shift to the 2s subshell, and with either it will preserve its spin or it will flip its spin, and if it flips it is sorry, okay, and the metastable states of this neon atom is all having almost the same energy with that of the singlet and triplet states of helium. So there is a chance of achieving population inversion in a much easy way, because the energy difference of the excited state from the ground state is equivalent to the metastable state to the ground state of neon. And what we need to have a population inversion is to excite the electrons from the ground state to the metastable state. What's the another question?
Where photon of specific energy is dominated over another photon in lasers.
फिर से रिपीट करो कपिल.
Where photon of specific energy is dominated over another photons in laser.
Okay. Actually, it is not the case. If a helium neon laser with 543 nanometer, then we can suppress the 632.8 nanometers. It is as per our requirement, but the main component that we generally use is 632.8 nanometer. It totally depends on the mirrors that we use, how much is the reflectivity of the mirror. It can have a low reflectivity for a particular photon or a high reflectivity for another photon. So this is how we can achieve a particular photon as per our requirement. Another?
What is Doppler effect, ma'am?
Okay. Doppler effect is simply if we move like in a light or source, we already know about the Doppler effect, that if the source is moving away from the laser or from the light or the sound source, then there is a shift in the frequency, or I can say in the wavelength. So the difference in the shift in the frequency gives rise to the Doppler effect. Next.
Where does a triplet state have lower energy than a singlet state?
Okay. This is mainly because of the spin flip. This particularly depends on the multiplicity and the spin flip of the electron while it moves from the one shell to another shell.
Is there any possibility that the electron in the metastable state in CO2 molecule can goes to excited state of N2? If that is possible, then how is laser produced?
Okay, wait.
Should I repeat again?
No, I think I understand. In this laser, you said what is there any possibility that electron from the CO2 asymmetric stretch will go to nitrogen, right? Is it right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have to look about this possibility, but I don't think there is a possibility because this is the metastable state, and there will not be any lasing action if the electron moves from the asymmetric state to the nitrogen excited state, because for a lasing action we must need a metastable state, and this excited state of nitrogen is not a metastable state. For a lasing action, having a metastable state and achieving a population inversion is must, and we can achieve a population and inversion only in the metastable state, not in the excited state, because this excited state has a lower lifespan of the order of 10 to the power minus 8 seconds.
Another one is how Doppler effect affects the helium laser, He neon laser, helium
Okay.
neon laser. हाँ.
This Doppler effect leads to a line width of 1.5 gigahertz. 1.5 gigahertz means if I plot this intensity versus wavelength curve in terms of intensity versus frequency, then 1.5 gigahertz means I will have some bandwidth. I mean the full width and half maxima corresponding to this frequency will be much higher. And if it is much higher, this means then we did not get a very pure spectral line. So the broadening in any case affects the laser purity. Broadening itself is a measure of spectral purity. So along with this red light, spectral purity means if we have a sharp line, then we can get only one color. And if we have some broadening, then some other wavelengths are also comprising along with the main component. So it hinders the spectral purity.
And another one is how to measure longitudinal and transverse modes in lasers.
Okay. Actually, these are TEM00 and another mode, but I have to look into the details of this to explain. But please write this question on my email. I will surely answer this.
Then फिर बीडी श्रीवास्तव सर.
हाँ.
बीडी श्रीवास्तव सर.
हाँ जी. Thanks.
समाप्त करते.
Dr. Arpana for a nice lecture and the very wonderful answers given to the students. But what I think जो हमारे स्टूडेंट्स हैं जो हिंदी मीडियम वाले हैं उनको डॉपलर इफेक्ट में दिक्कत इसलिए आ रही है क्योंकि वो ये नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं कि जब एक सोर्स और ऑब्जर्वर सोर्स एंड ऑब्जर्वर दोनों एक दूसरे की ओर जब आते हैं तो वो शिफ्ट में चेंज होता है.
जब भी दोनों के बीच मोशन होगा.
You are right, but the students are confusing only that they are not understanding properly what is the observer and what is the source. That's
Okay.
why that's why they are asking several times such type of questions. बट आई थिंक तो उनको बहुत सिंपली मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा ऐसे स्टूडेंट्स को कि डॉपलर इफेक्ट को यदि समझना है तो हमको पहले सोर्स को समझना पड़ता है, ऑब्जर्वर को समझना पड़ता है, और इनकी जो फ्रीक्वेंसी है लाइट की, हम यहाँ स्पेशली हम लाइट की बात करेंगे, यहाँ हम साउंड की बात नहीं करेंगे। लेजर की जब बात हो रही है तो लाइट की ही बात होगी है। जब लाइट की बात यदि होगी तो सोर्स और ऑब्जर्वर जब एक दूसरे की ओर जो है वो आएंगे तो इनके आने के कारण जो इफेक्ट बन रहा है, जो चेंज हो रहा है, सडन चेंज हो रहा है, वो सडन चेंज इनको समझ में जैसे ही आएगा वैसे ही इनको आपकी कही हुई सारी बातें बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आ जाएंगी। तो थैंक डॉक्टर अर्पना अग्रवाल ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ IAPT। दिस इज
Thank
द
you,
वेरी
sir.
गुड लेक्चर फॉर PG स्टूडेंट, or not only PG student, but if there are some workers or researchers who are employing, they are pursuing in laser physics. So my one question to you,
Yes, sir.
if you say something on the synchrotron, especially अपने RR-CAT में जो है उससे
हाँ, sir.
लेजर से हम लोग क्या करते हैं, किस तरह से करते हैं, वो थोड़ा सा बता दें ताकि बच्चों को उसका आइडिया लग जाए कि RR-CAT इंदौर में हमारा लेजर प्रोडक्शन कैसे हो।
सर जो सिंक्रोट्रॉन बीमलाइन फैसिलिटीज होती है वहां पे हमें फ्री इलेक्ट्रॉन लेजर्स की, जहाँ पे हमें एंडुलेटर्स और मॉड्यूलेटर्स की जरूरत होती है, वहां पे हम फ्री इलेक्ट्रॉन लेजर्स का यूज करते हैं। तो जिससे क्या होता है, हमारा सिंक्रोट्रॉन में बेसिकली क्या है, हमारा जो इलेक्ट्रॉन बीम है, we made it this electron beam to pass through the bending magnets so that we can achieve a very high so that this electron beam will be accelerated in a very fast manner. तो इनको accelerate करने के लिए we need some bending magnet, and for this high accelerated beams will give us very high energy which can be used for various experimental measurements like X-ray absorption or X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy and other. So laser systems तो हर ही जगह यूज हो रहा है।
Okay, it's fine. Right. Thank you very much.
On the behalf of
और क्वेश्चन हो, कुछ और हो बच्चों के, तो टाइम भी अपना हो रहा है, it's 7 है ना
सर? अभी तो कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है। और on the behalf of the other students, I thank you मैम।
और इनको आप टेस्ट के बारे में थोड़ा सा बता दें।
हाँ, कल 3 बजे आप सभी का एक टेस्ट होगा लेजर फिजिक्स पे, जिसमें जो डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सोलंकी ने आपको बेसिक लेजर फिजिक्स बताया है स्टार्टिंग के फर्स्ट और सेकंड डे, दैट इज 15 और 16 को जो डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सोलंकी ने आपको पढ़ाया है, और मेरी दोनों क्लासेस लास्ट जो मैंने सॉलिड स्टेट लेजर सिस्टम्स बताए हैं और आज जो गैस लेजर बताया है, तो इन चारों लेक्चर्स को कंप्राइज करके आपका कल एक 3 बजे 1 hour का टेस्ट होगा, जिसमें हम आपको एक गूगल फॉर्म देंगे विद सम क्वेश्चंस। यू हैव आपको उन सारे क्वेश्चंस का आंसर देना है ऑन टाइम, और उसका लिंक हम आपको शेयर कर देंगे।
आई थिंक
इनफ,
कोई डाउट नहीं है, अब मैं कर देता हूँ।
हाँ, कोई भी डाउट हो तो प्लीज आप मेल कर दीजिएगा। थैंक यू कपिल।
थैंक यू मैम।
थैंक यू।